Welcome to the Something About Sandy Film Fight Podcast with your host, Ash Baker.
Oh, hello there. I'm so glad you can join me for another episode of the Something About Sandy Film Fights podcast, the podcast that takes the best and worst films on a given theme and puts them in the gladiatorial arena for you to cast your judgment on them. I'm your host, Ash Baker, and let's get this show on the road. This week's theme:
role reversals. So
this is quite a rich theme of films to discuss, where either the gender or the race of the main characters are switched in an attempt to say something different about the same story, or as a cynical ploy to grab more of your cash, whichever way you want to see it. We've seen quite a bit of this in recent years, with the 2016 all-female Ghostbusters remake sparking a lot of debate online, and also films like the 90s Mel Gibson vehicle What Women Want, recently being made as What Men Want with Taraji P. Henson. But I feel like there's already been quite a lot said about those remakes, so I'm going to steer well clear of those. This week's episode is on two films about people who try and wreck the upcoming marriage of their supposed best friends, with varying results. I'm of course talking about Julia Roberts in My Best Friend's Wedding, up against Patrick Dempsey in Maid of Honor. So sit back, relax, and keep an ear out for those church bells while listening to this week's pod. Although, if anyone has any just reason why they should not hear any spoilers, speak now, or forever hold your peace. First up, it's My Best Friend's Wedding, and here are the facts.
Year of release:
1997.
Directed by
P.J. Hogan.
Starring
Julia Roberts, Dermot Mulroney, Cameron Diaz, and Rupert Everett.
Running time:
1 hour and 45 minutes.
Current Rotten Tomatoes rating:
73%.
Worldwide box office takings:
$299 million.
Where to watch?
It's on Amazon Prime. Julia Roberts stars in this anti-rom-com as Jules, a hotshot restaurant critic whose best friend Michael announces his impending nuptials to a perky younger model and invites Jules along. Jules quickly gets appointed the Maid of Honor, but only has one goal in mind: trying to break up the happy couple and keep Michael all for herself. So this is the first time I'd seen this film, and I was struck with just how bold it was. The opening number alone is a surreal 60s throwback, telling you how you might have traditionally got your man, as it were, and it keeps wrong-footing you from there on in. At first, I didn't quite believe the strength of the friendship between Jules and Michael, with Rupert Everett's George clearly being Jules' best friend now, and I wondered if the film could have done more to set this up. However, on balance, I think this was deliberate by the film to show how distant they'd become. Have they really been best friends all this time? Or were they just clinging on to the dying embers of their failed relationship because they couldn't quite let go? Roberts comes across as wonderfully dastardly, constantly plotting up schemes whilst being all sweetness and light to everyone. Roberts manages to do this whilst avoiding being a pantomime villain, making each plot believable. The film constantly plays with your loyalties. You can never quite decide if you want Jules' plans to come off or for them to fail, which inevitably they do. Some of the imagery is a little on the nose. For example, there's a moment when Michael and Jules are dancing on a boat and you wonder, are they going to get together again? But they pass under a bridge and the moment's gone. Or when Jules enters a room hell-bent on ruining things and flames rise behind her. But the script and performances are good enough that you forgive the film for this. I love the fact that the film didn't cop out by putting Jules and Michael together at the end. And even better that we didn't have Jules look longingly at someone in the final scene and instantly find love. The film just leaves it open. It takes a bold filmmaker to have the confidence to not tie everything up so easily. But despite that, it still felt quite satisfying. Although I've got to say, if I were in Jules' position, there's no way I'd be able to still go to that wedding. I would have told them all to shove it. The performances in this are really something. Julia Roberts was great as the sparky and snarky Jules, playing the role with enough pathos and believability that you just about stay on her side, despite her doing some truly despicable things. Some best friend, hey? It's a strange feeling to be rooting for the bad guy, but her performance carries you through. Dermot Mulroney played the role of Michael with effortless charm and dry wit. Whilst handsome, he's not necessarily what you'd think of as leading man material, but he takes on the mantle well, and you can absolutely believe that he has two stunning women fighting over him, even if he does come across as a bit of a smoothie smootherson on occasions. Rupert Everett is clearly having a whale of a time playing the gay best friend George, being Jules' shoulder to cry on, whilst nudging her eventually to come to the right conclusion. He leads an amazingly over-the-top sing-song in a diner, which has to be my favourite scene in the film. And Cameron Diaz as Kimmy gets the balance right of annoying and childish to start with, but someone you start to care for by the end, showing great range within the film's running time. And the rest of the cast are all fab too, especially the over-the-top relatives of Kimmy, who threatened to steal the show on a few occasions. All in all, this was a fun comedy that constantly played with your loyalties and expectations, and didn't take the easy way out. And it was made even better by some fantastic performances. My official rating is...
Anti-rom-com gem.
Next up, it's Maid of Honor, and you guessed it, it's time for the facts.
Year of release.
2008.
Directed by...
Paul Wieland.
Starring...
Patrick Dempsey, Michelle Monaghan and Kevin McKidd.
Running time.
1 hour and 41 minutes.
Current Rotten Tomatoes rating.
15%.
Worldwide box office takings.
$106 million.
Where to watch.
Unfortunately, you're going to have to rent this one. So Maid of Honor follows the friendship of Tom and Hannah, who do everything together, including discussing Tom's numerous conquests, until Hannah meets the dashing Scotsman Colin and agrees to a whirlwind wedding. Tom realises that he's actually in love with Hannah and wants to break up the wedding to keep Hannah for himself. But will he manage to convince her he's a changed man? Tom spends most of the early part of the film swanning around in fancy cars and having plush dinners without ever having to do any work. And the excuse given is that he invented the cardboard coffee cup sleeve, which has made him like $1 kajillion. It's the sort of unbelievable job screenwriters give characters when they can't be bothered having to try and fit in him going to work. So it led to the first eye roll of the film. The jokes in this simply aren't funny enough. There's a few misses moments, like when we first meet Hannah and it looks like she's performing oral sex on a painting. Ooh, how naughty. Or an extended gag about her nan buying a sex toy, mistaking it for a necklace. Shocking. There's also some really mean-spirited jokes at the expense of some of the side characters, particularly Kevin Sussman's tiny short guy, who just wants to join in the basketball game, and shall we say, larger bridesmaid, who is desperately trying to lose weight before the big day. The film isn't afraid of some stereotypes either, the most egregious being its treatment of Scotland. Or should I say, okay, the new bunny with Scotland! Because apparently everyone talks like that up there. Don't get me wrong, some of the scenery is breathtaking, but that doesn't make up for the rest of it just being completely ridiculous. Although maybe I'm being unfair, and actually everyone throws impromptu Highland games every now and then. The film really let itself down with the cop-out ending, seeing Tom get the girl after all, despite him acting completely horribly, and Colin actually being a half-decent human being. I get that it's a rom-com, and people want to see the boy get the girl, but it just felt like the easy way out. However, the biggest issue about the film was that actually, I just wasn't that bothered by it. I didn't laugh at any of the jokes, didn't really care if they got together or not at the end. The dastardly plans seemed pretty tame. It was all just a bit lightweight, really. Couldn't even work up the motivation to be angry with it. The performances were okay, but not good enough to save the shoddy script. Tom's played by Patrick Dempsey, who was in the height of his Dr. McDreamy phase from Grey's Anatomy, and the film is so completely in love with him. His natural charm and charisma mean you don't hate him quite as much as you should, although you still cheer when he gets decked at the end. And I'm sorry, but I really didn't buy him as a basketballer. He just looked too scrawny. Michelle Monaghan is Hannah and comes across as a strong and confident character, making her stand out against all the other women in the film who weren't even two-dimensional and were treated like nothing more than bimbos. Although this made it even more disappointing that Hannah eventually throws this all away and gets with him anyway. Kevin McKidd, another Grey's Anatomy alumnus, plays a handsome Scot Colin with plenty of charm, effortlessly proving why he's the better option all the way through. I know the film wanted us to root for Tom and Hannah to get together, but we're just left feeling like she should have gone with Colin. And heck, if she won't, we will. All in all, it's not terrible, it's just not any good. Completely forgettable, unfunny, cliched, and a cop-out ending. One to avoid. My official rating is...
Meh.
Now it's time for your favourite new feature.
Biggest meanie of the week.
It was close this week between Jules in My Best Friend's Wedding and Tom in Maid of Honor for their dastardly schemes, but it's got to go to Tom. Not only does he scheme, but he's quite often just casually nasty to others, not involved in the story at all. So Tom is the biggest meanie of the week. And now it's time for what you've all been waiting for.
Top trumps, top trumps, top trumps, top trumps, top trumps.
Who's going to win this week? Let's find out. Our first category is...
Falling over.
So I counted 4 pratfalls for Julia Roberts, including twice with the same flower guy, and I thought that was going to be tough to beat, but I was wrong, as Patrick Dempsey also racked up 4 falls, including one off a horse. So this round is a draw.
Dastardly plots.
Both Tom and Jules tried to lay quite a few dastardly plots to bring a halt to proceedings. Tom's felt a bit lame, although I suppose they were actually successful, as Jules' plans always backfired. So I'm going to have to give this round to Maid of Honor.
Dreamboats.
Maid of Honor has 2 with Dempsey and McKidd, although My Best Friend's Wedding just had the 1 with Mulroney. So Maid of Honor also takes this round.
Public singing.
Maid of Honor featured Colin singing, I think, the most Scottish song they could find. But My Best Friend's Wedding handsomely beats this with many scenes, the most memorable being I Say a Little Prayer for You in the diner and a helium-fused trio on a tennis court. My Best Friend's Wedding easily takes this round.
Secondary best friends.
Maid of Honor had some pretty disposable hangers-on for both Tom and Hannah, but in My Best Friend's Wedding, Rupert Everett completely steals the show as George, so his performance is worth at least 5 of the friends in Maid of Honor. So this round goes to My Best Friend's Wedding.
Snogging.
My Best Friend's Wedding had a few tasteful kisses, but Maid of Honor had at least 7 full-on snog fests. So Maid of Honor takes this one.
And the winner is...
Well. Maid of Honor has 3 rounds to My Best Friend's Weddings 2. So in a massive upset, Maid of Honor takes the title. Well, I didn't see that coming. And now for the final summary. My Best Friend's Wedding had something really interesting to say about the rom-com genre. It was well written and well performed, and had a lot of fun too. I think the fact that it's a woman who's the commitment phobe is interesting too, as women often aren't allowed to be like this in films, something that is ever so slightly getting better now, but we're still a long way off. So for this to be made in the 90s, and for it to be a mainstream hit, makes it extra noteworthy. With Maid of Honor, it seems like they watched My Best Friend's Wedding and thought, how can we take everything that made this film great and just completely bin it off and make it much more generic? First of all, the gender swap makes it much less interesting. Oh look, another impossibly handsome man swanning around, sleeping with as many impossibly hot women as he wants, and he is completely abhorrent to them. But it's okay, because he's Dr. McDreamy! Yawn. The comedy in this is much lazier, and much more mean-spirited. As mentioned before, I felt particularly uncomfortable with the mean-spiritedness towards the geeky basketball character and the bridesmaid. You could say it's a product of its time, but it was made 11 years after My Best Friend's Wedding, so I don't think that's an excuse. And one of the best things about My Best Friend's Wedding is that they managed to resist the cop-out ending of getting them together, which Maid of Honor looked at and just thought, nah, and did it anyway. Are we supposed to be happy that she married this execrable, vainglorious turd just because he looks like Patrick Dempsey? Give me a break. But the worst thing about Maid of Honor was actually that it was just a bit meh. I was expecting to be more riled up about it, but actually it was just utterly forgettable, and put up against My Best Friend's Wedding, it just wasn't good enough in every department. Therefore, My Best Friend's Wedding wins by knockout in the first round. Maid of Honor didn't stand a chance, really. And now for a new feature. I hope that someone gets my, I hope that someone gets my, I hope that someone gets my message to the podcast. I've had some really lovely feedback after the first few episodes, so thank you to everyone who has already downloaded and taken the time to let me know their thoughts. I've also had some good constructive criticism, and hopefully you'll be able to hear that I've made some of those changes already. Although I want to keep improving, so I'm always happy to hear your suggestions. I'm also keen to get your ideas for film matchups. The weirder and more niche the topic, the better. And don't forget that all podcasts are always open for debate. Freya got in touch to stand up for Kronk's New Groove after episode 2. Well, I say stand up for it. It was quite a half-hearted defence, really, just saying it wasn't that bad. I obviously told her she was completely wrong and should watch it again to reevaluate and come to the correct conclusion. She'll thank me later. And Lou, as the #1 Chris Evans mega fan, messaged to say she thought that Evans's muscles were actually better in Captain America. I agree, but they were lusted over more in Fantastic Four, so I had to give that round to the latter. Although the real winner, surely, is us, for getting to see them twice. As always, if you want to contact the show, you can email me on somethingaboutsandifilmpod@gmail.com, and it's SAS Filmpod on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. So that's it for another episode. What do you reckon? Was I too harsh on Maid of Honor? Too glowing about my best friend's wedding? Or did I get it spot on? Get in touch and tell me what you think. And if you're enjoying this series, then please leave a review and subscribe to the podcast on your chosen podcast provider. And share it with any friends who you think might enjoy it. I can't offer you a prize for sharing it, unfortunately, but I promise you'll feel all warm and fuzzy inside if you do. And who doesn't want that? So, thanks for listening, and a special thanks goes to Joe Baker for all the music, and Alison Moore for the voiceover work. See you next time on the Something About Sandy Film Fight podcast.